Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Jermaine Blount, and my topic or my title of my speech is Hidden History. Throughout history, those in power have changed the record to favor themselves, often at the cost of those being oppressed. Until lions have storytellers, hunters will be seen as the heroes. How many of you remember something you learned in history class? Just raise your hands. Columbus, probably. Revolutionary War, safe. Slavery, probably, yeah. How about redlining? Yeah. Gerrymandering, lost cause? Yeah, me either. These topics have not been taught. When I was younger, in my free time, I'd read history textbooks from our teachers, and I would watch historical documentaries and YouTube videos. If you can't tell, I'm a history buff. And I am because I've always seen history as a story separate from my own, apart from my reality. And eventually, I started to realize that I have to find myself in history. So I began to look in our school's history textbooks. And the only people I saw that looked like me were either in chains or working in fields. And that was a shock to me because, well, I'm not a slave. So what happened? Why can't I find myself in history? So I began to really look past the textbooks, the documentaries, and the conventional educational system. And there I found it. I found the often hidden history of African Americans in this country. I found out about gerrymandering, redlining, lost cause revisionism, and many other things. And all these systems and laws were put in place to prevent people from knowing the truth. Let's talk about those things. In the 1930s, the United States was having a housing shortage, and the federal government decided to install a new program to segregate housing. They masked it as a way to give white middle class families homes. However, many African Americans were segregated to poor sections of cities and red blocks, thus the name redlining. The second thing I learned from my research was lost cause revisionism. It was initially formed after the Civil War by Civil War vets and their families to try and change the narrative of the Civil War. They stated that the Confederacy fought the war for states' rights rather than slavery. Organizations such as the Confederate Sisters of America would pressure local governments to erect statues and monuments for the Confederate soldiers. They even managed to have a statue at Arlington National Cemetery. One of their most famous advocates was 28th President Woodrow Wilson. He not only segregated the federal government, but he also played the film Birth of a Nation on the South Lawn, calling it History with Lightning. For those of you who don't know, Birth of a Nation is a silent film that was released in 1915 that was instrumental in warping African American history. The film portrayed African Americans as evil and deceitful people who were unworthy of equality, while portraying the KKK as a force for good. And the third topic that I researched was gerrymandering. Every 10 years after the census, the United States government redraws districts so they're proportional to population. However, there are little to no laws regulating those in power from drawing them however they want. As a result of this, gerrymandering is the practice of redrawing districts to favor one party over the other. This makes elections less competitive, representational, and unfair, especially towards people of color. While there have been several atrocities enacted against black people in this country, however, through knowing our history, we also uncover many of the triumphs we have over our circumstances. When I was 10, I wanted to be a pilot. If Bessie Coleman, the first African American pilot, could do it, so could I. When I was 15, I wanted to be an architect. If Imhotep, the famous Egyptian architect, could do it, so could I. And currently, I'm planning on studying business finance in college. If those on Black Wall Street could do it, then so could I. Dr. Martin Luther King stated that education plus character, that is the true goal of education. While I agree with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how do you make that actionable? I propose a simple 3-step plan to learn from our history. Number one, understand that our textbooks are incomplete. Consider your sources of information. Number two, It's important that we are all cognizant that we're all at different stages of learning. And we should seek to understand a person's perspective and provide concrete evidence. And finally, we should use history to inspire and remind us of what is possible. History reminds us of our potential, the challenges our people faced, and the barriers we overcame. Through this talk, I've shared with you a way forward by researching our history. The true purpose of education is to obtain and apply knowledge. And as we learn our past and apply our knowledge to the present, we can change the future of our people. Thank you.